Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 287, Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 2 went down last night. And this is going to be my UFC 287 post-fight exclusively for the main event, Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 2. We are going to break down the fight. We are going to discuss what's next for Israel Adesanya, what's next for Alex Pereira. I'm going to have a couple hot takes in this video. And also, we're going to talk about something that Israel Adesanya did after the fight that received a lot of criticism. Now, before I get into any of that, I did an entire hour-and-a-half long live post-fight immediately following the fights. I will link that down in the description. And I also did a full fight card watch-along where you can see all of my live reaction to the fight card. I will link that also down in the description if you want to go check out either of those after this. But we're going to break down the fight. We're going to look at my prediction as well, because my prediction for this fight was historically the best prediction I've ever had on the channel. And we're just going to dissect this fight from every single angle, talking about the outlook going into the fight, you know, the fans underestimating of Israel Adesanya. And we're just going to dissect it from every possible angle. So starting off, before we get into anything, the prediction I had for this main event was absolutely legendary. And I don't want to sit here and pat myself on the back for too much, but my prediction, when I went back and watched it afterwards, I knew it was really accurate, but when I went back and watched it afterwards, I couldn't believe it. It was like I had already seen the fight. And the reason I'm so high on this prediction, you know, it is what it is. We all guess fights. Some we get right, some we get wrong. I got so much crap for my prediction. Go look at the comments on my prediction video. People are like, I can't wait to come back afterwards, and this is going to age terribly. I saw hundreds of remarks, whether it be in live streams, whether it be on the actual videos themselves, saying, you don't know what you're talking about. There's no way Adesanya is going to KO him, this and that. And it just felt amazing to get that 100% accurate. And I want to start off in this video by showing you a 45-second clip from my official prediction earlier this week. Check that out real quick. And I think Pereira, now that he has the confidence in his head, you know, I finished him twice. I'm going to finish him again. I think Pereira is going to come out more aggressive. And I think that stylistic matchup of a pressure fighter is the perfect matchup for Israel Adesanya. He's an amazing counter striker. And I think Adesanya is going to land a big shot in that second round, maybe late second round. And I think he's going to KO Alex Pereira. And I think it's going to be shocking for most people. And Pereira, he can't just wade in and not respect Adesanya's striking. And I think in this fight, he will. I think he'll be looking for an earlier finish. I think he thinks he's going to go in there and bully Israel Adesanya in the earlier rounds. And I think he's going to get clipped by Adesanya. And I think he's going to get put to sleep in the late second round. So there you go. You have my prediction. Talk about spot on. I can't believe how eerily accurate that was. And it's the best pick I've ever had on the channel. Not only did I pick the exact winner, the exact method, the exact basically time period. I said late second round KO. I also broke down the fight, how I thought it would play out and how I thought each guy would approach this fight with basically 100% accuracy. How did the fight go? Because I've now rewatched this fight 3 times, so I've seen it 4 times total, including the live watch. And I thought I viewed it a little bit differently on the rewatch than when I watched it live. So the first round was Adesanya in the first half of the first round. He was actually addressing the leg kick the leg kicks against Alex Pereira very well. And in the first half of round 1, Israel Adesanya was winning the leg kick battle. He was landing the better combinations. He was landing body kicks. He was landing hard leg kicks of his own. And then you had later on in the first round where you had kind of Pereira occasionally mixing in the forward pressure, jabs to the body, and then started towards the last 2 minutes of the round, you had Pereira really starting to chop those legs of Adesanya. And it was starting to really set the tone for the fight. But after rewatch, when I watched it live, I thought it was close. And I thought maybe Pereira could have stole it with the last minute of leg kicks. But I thought, okay, it probably goes to Adesanya because I think he landed the cleaner shots. He was landing good punches, good body kicks. He was having a lot of forward pressure. And Pereira really didn't have any success in the first round outside of leg kicks. When I rewatched it, it was a clear Israel Adesanya 10-9 round. Adesanya looked so clean in the first round. outside absorbing those, like a dozen leg kicks towards the end of the round, Adesanya had a very clean round. Then you have the second round, which ultimately the fight ended in the second round. You had a Alex Pereira partial head kick in the beginning of the second round. Didn't hurt Adesanya at all, but Pereira decided he was going to blitz forward and pressure him at that point. He blitzed forward. He landed one good left hand, but then Adesanya started to fire back, and nothing really came of it. It was kind of a super exciting moment at the time because it was like, oh, Pereira's hunting for the finish here. But nothing really happened outside of one really good left hand from Pereira after that head kick. And then you had Adesanya. That was literally like the first 40 seconds of the second round. And then you had Adesanya going back to work. And Adesanya had a mix of really good forward pressure, but he was also fighting very well when he was being backed up as well. There was times where Pereira would press forward. Adesanya would kind of sit in the pocket. He would have a very high guard, land a decent shots, and then circle out. And then he would go back on the offensive. And in this second round, you had Adesanya landing good body kicks. He landed a couple good combinations upstairs, even though Pereira was rolling with the strikes very well. And from about maybe the 4.5 minute mark, so you had 4.5 minutes left in the round, to about the 1 minute mark of the round, it was a clear Adesanya round. Because after that initial flurry, there was really nothing for Pereira. And then when you get down to the last minute, which the finish happened in the last minute of the round, you had Pereira really start to come alive with some leg kicks. And it felt as if, okay, is the momentum starting to shift? Because not only was he battering up one leg, he was battering up both legs. Adesanya was constantly switching stances. He always switches stances. But the calf was taking a lot of damage from Pereira. And Pereira's leg kicks, there's like no wind up on him, so it's hard to see him coming, but they still land with a very good impact. Pereira lands a leg kick. You see Adesanya's leg kind of, he's clearly affected by it. And he starts to circle out. Pereira starts to kind of start hunting him down a little bit, lands another leg kick. Adesanya's leg has that same effect again. He backs up against the fence. He's shelling up well. And Pereira's like, okay, you know what? I got him on the ropes here. His leg is hurt. His movement is limited. I'm going to go after him here. And he goes after him. I think he throws a jab at the guard. Then he throws a knee that is blocked by Adesanya. It looked like it might have got through when I watched it live, or partially blocked. When I rewatched it in slow-mo, it was blocked by Adesanya. Then he throws a left hook, a heavy left hook. He's got Adesanya up against the fence. Same thing he wants to do in the first fight, the first MMA fight. He wants to leap forward with a left hook. He throws a left hook, and it actually partially sneaks through, which I thought it was 100% blocked when I watched it live. I watched it back in slow-mo. It sneaks through. Maybe 50% of that punch actually lands. But the second that hits the guard of Adesanya, he immediately is ready to fire back and counter. And the second it hits the guard, Pereira's pulling the left hook back, getting ready to throw it again. But Adesanya, as soon as it hit his arm, he's already cocking back on that right hand. Boom. Hits Pereira right on the ear, hurts him badly, stumbles him, and then Adesanya fires another right hand. That second right hand, Pereira was out clean right then and there, starts to fall, eats a left hand from Adesanya, and then a brutal hammer fist from Adesanya to finish it off. And I mean, what an incredible finish. What an incredible moment. Pereira, it seemed like the momentum was starting to shift in his favor. It really did seem like that. In the last, 20 to 30 seconds before the actual finish, it seemed like, okay, these leg kicks are starting to pay dividends. Adesanya may still get this round, but how are those legs going to keep up for another 3 rounds, essentially, because you're only 2 rounds in? But even without the finish, I think Adesanya would have took round 2. And round 1, all 3 judges gave it to Israel Adesanya, so they agree with me on that. And ultimately, it doesn't matter how the second round would have been scored. Adesanya finished him in the second round. So even if somehow Pereira would have survived that onslaught of shots and not got brutally slept out cold, it would have been Adesanya's round. So Adesanya won this fight. People kept saying going into this fight, I picked Adesanya to use his striking, his technical ability. I thought he was the better striker to KO Pereira, who would be over-aggressive and overconfident. And that's exactly what happened. A lot of people were saying Adesanya's going to use his grappling. He's going to become Israel Nurmagomedov, basically people were saying. And I said, I really don't think he's going to mix it in all that much. If it goes long, I think Adesanya might mix it in. But I really think he's going to win this fight with his striking. And I think Adesanya in this fight was going to be more aggressive on the feet. I showed you the clip earlier in the video. And that's exactly what happened here. Adesanya, outside of the leg kicks, Pereira landing those leg kicks, Adesanya outstruck him. Pereira really landed nothing. There was like one good jab, I think, in the second round. And then there was the one really good left hand in the first round, or the beginning of the second round as well. Outside of that, Pereira was really never able to get anything going on the feet outside of the leg kicks, which were very good, don't get me wrong. But I think this fight proved how good Adesanya is. And I think what's crazy is some people, and I talk about this all the time, I've said this so many times on the channel, some people fold under pressure. Some people just can't handle momentous moments. And Adesanya came into this fight with his back against the wall. The narrative was he is 0-3 against Pereira. Even though those kickboxing matches were 6 and 7 years ago, they don't matter. He came in knowing if I lose to him here, I will never get to fight him again. And people were saying, he's 4-0 against me. And Adesanya came out and put on the performance of a life. He won the first round, won the majority of the second round, and got the finish. And a couple things that people were saying to me in the lead up to this fight, Pereira's clearly a better striker. That's not what I saw in this fight. And I'm not going to sit here and act like Adesanya is leap years ahead of Pereira in the striking. I think Adesanya is the better striker. And I think you look back, whether it be the kickboxing matches, which I don't want to use, but this, for the sake of argument, people use this argument. The kickboxing matches, Pereira won the first one by decision, won the second one by KO. The first one was a brutal robbery. Adesanya won that fight. He landed the better shots in that fight. Second one, Adesanya was winning, almost finished Pereira, then got clipped and finished. He was winning the majority of that. First fight in MMA, Adesanya winning the majority of it outside of one round that was very close, but Pereira took it. And then he gets finished in the 5th round. You look back, they've had 4 total combat sports competitions. Adesanya's won about 85 to 90% of those. And the majority of those fights and kickboxing matches have been on the feet. So I think the evidence is on my side. I think Adesanya is clearly the better technical striker. And another thing I said going in this fight, people kept saying, Adesanya doesn't have finishing ability. Adesanya has like 23 wins. I'm not looking at it right in front of me right now, but I mentioned it in my prediction video as well. Adesanya has like 23 wins in pro MMA, like 16 or 15 of them are by KO or TKO. Just because he's not finishing Robert Whittaker in a rematch or Marvin Vettori, who's made out of, cinder block, doesn't mean he doesn't have finishing ability. And I think what it comes down to in this fight, Pereira got by on finding those big moments, which the power of Pereira, that left hook of Pereira is absolutely deadly. But he got by a little bit too much on that power, and he came in super confident because he's like, I already finished this guy twice. I'm just going to finish him again. And I think in this fight, he was thinking, and I broke this down in my prediction as well, he was thinking, I'm going to try to get him out of there earlier. I'm going to bully him. I'm going to push him backwards. I'm going to make him fight my fight. And it ended up costing him because he pressed forward with reckless abandon. And you can't do that against Israel Adesanya, one of the best counter strikers in the game. And he paid for it with his consciousness. And this was a KO that I don't know if Pereira can ever recover from. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we know for sure, because we don't know for sure. You never know until they fight again. But that massive weight cut down to middleweight, and the fact that he just absorbed hellacious shots and 2 follow-up shots that he didn't really need, the left hook on the way down and then the hammer fist, I don't know if that chin's ever going to recover. And Alex Pereira is massive for the weight class. I'm wondering if he goes up to 205. We're going to talk about that in a second. But Pereira slays the dragon, or Adesanya finally slays the dragon in Alex Pereira, gets his retribution, outstrikes him, finishes him, puts a stamp on the I guess quadrilogy, if you want to call it that, if you want to include those kickboxing matches. But essentially they're 1-1 and now in MMA. So what really happens here? Do they do a trilogy? My opinion is I do not believe the UFC is going to do a trilogy. I don't believe Adesanya wants a trilogy. And I think we're going to hear a lot of Adesanya's scared of him, blah, blah, blah. Did you watch the fight? Did you watch UFC 281 as well? Adesanya is not scared of Pereira. But I don't personally think it's smart for Pereira to even try to campaign for the trilogy. Because after watching that last one, I think he's going to go to sleep again. I would pick Adesanya again by KO. Pereira's only getting older. The weight cut's only getting harder. And Adesanya likes to stay active. He didn't take a lot of damage in this fight outside of the leg kicks. What is Pereira going to want to turn around? In the maximum amount of time, I would say, is 6 months that Adesanya is probably going to sit out. I see Adesanya at least fighting one more time this year. So I wouldn't advise it for Pereira to look for a trilogy. I don't think Pereira deserves a trilogy, to be honest. And this is where we kind of get into the hot takes. I think Alex Pereira is a very good fighter. Let me just say that right off the jump, because people are going to misunderstand and misconstrue what I'm going to say. He's a very good fighter. He's an elite level striker. He is a champion. And, you know, I hate to say this. I hate to even say this because people take this the wrong way. Alex Pereira is one of the most overrated middleweights of all time. And the reason I'm saying that is because what Adesanya said in the lead up to this fight was 100% true. Because what he said was, I carved the path out for him. Pereira didn't have to fight all the killers. You know, he had to fight Sean Strickland, who's not going to grapple him at all, to get to a title shot. Outside of that, he fought Bruno Silva, who got finished by Gerald Meerschaert in his last fight. Before that, Andreas Michailidis. Pereira had the easiest path to the title, and he got the job done against Adesanya. Don't get me wrong. He got the job done. He TKO'd him in the 5th round at UFC 281. But the reason that Adesanya got that immediate rematch was because he was a long-reigning champion, because he had been so active, because he had fought the who's who in the middleweight division, and because he was winning the UFC 281 matchup up until he wasn't. That's why he got a rematch. Alex Pereira doesn't deserve a rematch. He didn't defend his belt once, and he got brutally finished. And I just don't think what he's done so far in the UFC, I don't think that warrants an immediate rematch. And especially after what I saw in the fight, I don't need to see it again. I really don't right now. Right now. And I'm going to get to what I want to happen in a minute. But I think it would be detrimental to Alex Pereira's career if he does it again. And I don't think it's going to end well for him. But I also just don't think he deserves it. Even though I wouldn't mind seeing these guys fight 10 times, honestly, because they're such both high-level strikers. I wouldn't mind seeing them fight for the next 10 fights against each other. But the reason I say Pereira is so vastly overrated is because even the people who picked Pereira in this fight, and I wanted to mention this as well, because a lot of people, I kept saying, Adesanya's a massive underdog going into this fight. I don't pay attention to betting odds. I pay attention to the MMA community itself. Almost everyone was counting out Israel Adesanya in this fight. They said, oh, you know, Pereira's too big, he's too strong, he's 3-0 on him, and he's going to get it done again. I would say 80% was going with Alex Pereira, and Israel Adesanya got it done. But the general consensus, even those people who picked Pereira, if Pereira was to get it done, they were saying, oh, he's going to lose to Robert Whittaker, he would lose to Marvin Vettori. Pereira doesn't have the grappling ability. When Israel Adesanya gets you down, I'm talking about UFC 281, and basically looks like Khabib Nurmagomedov with his wrist control and his ground and pound, there's a serious problem there. Then we also have to talk about the fact against Bruno Silva, he was even eating shots on the feet, and he got out-grappled in that fight as well. He ended up winning. He won the fight with his striking, but I'm just saying, what do you think Adesanya would do to Bruno Silva? Be honest now. So I really think Pereira is a product of Adesanya's success in the UFC. And I just think people are massively overrating him in terms of his actual skill set. He just matches up well with Adesanya. Obviously, Adesanya matches up well with him as well. But I don't know if he's going to have a lot of success in the middleweight division with, you know, you have guys like Marvin Vettori, you have guys like Robert Whittaker, and just other grapplers within the division that are just going to take him down and beat him up and most likely find a finish on the ground. And I think what should happen next, here would be my ideal scenario. My ideal scenario for the middleweight division, if Pereira does not move up to 205, and we'll talk about him moving up to 205 in a second, what I would like to see, book Khamzat Chimaev a fight as soon as possible. I know there's talk of October, maybe something sooner, maybe September, maybe August if possible. Book him a layup fight. I don't care. Book him Dricus du Plessis, where I think Khamzat will absolutely drop him on his head, ragdoll him, and finish him. Book that fight. Get Khamzat Chimaev a win at middleweight, and then book Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev. That would be a massive fight. I wouldn't even mind if they gave Khamzat a title shot without winning, but I think, you know, it's undeserved at that point because he hasn't beaten really anyone at middleweight. He missed weight in his last fight for a welterweight fight. And a win over Kevin Holland doesn't get you a title shot. The only reason I say give it to Khamzat, even with all that being said, is because of the lack of contenders, the lack of fresh contenders. Adesanya has cleaned out the division at this point. So book Khamzat a fight soon against a top middleweight. Dricus du Plessis, easy win for Khamzat. End of the year, book Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev. I believe that pay-per-view does over 1 million buys. Now, in the meantime, I want you to find Alex Pereira a top middleweight favorable matchup. You know, if Khamzat fights Paulo Costa, book Alex Pereira versus Dricus du Plessis. If you have a Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus, maybe book Alex Pereira versus Paulo Costa, because I believe Alex Pereira can beat Costa. Costa's primarily a striker. Something along those lines. And then if Adesanya beats Chimaev and Pereira beats whoever he's fighting, then in 2024, maybe spring, summer of 2024, then you get the trilogy. I believe you need to put some time in between this, because Pereira got flatlined and they just fought twice in the last 6 months, and Pereira does not deserve an immediate trilogy fight. So let him go out and win one fight. Let Adesanya fight Khamzat in the meantime, and then let them have a trilogy down the line in early or mid 2024. Now, the other scenario is if Alex Pereira goes up to light heavyweight. I don't know how he's going to do at light heavyweight, because some of those guys, I mean, there's not a lot of grappling heavy fighters at light heavyweight, but they're much bigger. Their power is more than Adesanya has, and I just think a lot of those guys are going to be able to capitalize. Jamal Hill, I think he KOs Alex Pereira. And Pereira, one of his massive advantages is his size and power in the middleweight division. So I don't know how well it's going to go for him. But if it was up to me, depending on what's going on in the division right now, book Pereira against somebody like, let's say Johnny Walker beats Anthony Smith. That's coming up very soon. Book Alex Pereira versus Johnny Walker. And if Pereira beats Walker, give him a title shot against Jamal Hill. If they don't have anything booked at that time, I think that makes the most sense. And I think probably Pereira will go up to 205, because that weight cut has got to be getting tough on him. But maybe he sticks around at middleweight, maybe he doesn't. The other possibility, this was out of left field. Jan Blachowicz says he wants to fight Adesanya. He wants to come down to middleweight. If he can make it, book it. That'd be very interesting. I don't think Jan can make middleweight, though. I find it hard. Jan Blachowicz is a massive. So that is the other possibility. The UFC could explore that. Jan Blachowicz is coming off a draw against Magomed Ankalaev in a light heavyweight title shot for the vacant belt. But I think that's a possibility. But what I do want to say is the inevitable goal needs to be Yuri Prochazka versus Israel Adesanya. What a crazy, wild fight that would be. That is a super fight that I am salivating for. That needs to end up happening sometime in 2024. But who knows what's bound to happen. Adesanya could lose his belt to somebody. Yuri could lose his, well, he already lost his belt. But you get the point. He's the champion, uncrowned champion. Vacated it due to an injury. But I think that's the fight to make. But overall, I think this was a historic performance for Adesanya. When the pressure was the biggest, he shined the brightest. And he had Alex Pereira officially frozen like Elsa. And I know that's so cringy and so corny. But I've been enjoying lately the people getting so upset over Israel Adesanya's corny lines. And I will say this. The celebration that Adesanya had after he KO'd him, the way he shot the arrows into the dead, lifeless body of Alex Pereira was absolutely savage. And the last thing I want to talk about in this video is Adesanya went over in the crowd, found Alex Pereira's teenage son, pointed at him, and then dropped to the canvas like a lifeless body, taunting Alex Pereira's teenage son. I am not a big fan of taunting. Okay, I'm not a big fan of taunting, especially when you KO'd a guy. I think it's kind of shitty. But I will say, I'm not going to clutch my pearls over this. We're watching grown men fight in a cage. And you add the layer to it that Alex Pereira's son, when he got brutally KO'd by Pereira in kickboxing, I'm talking about Adesanya, not Pereira KOing his son. Pereira's son taunted Adesanya multiple times. There's videos of it, of him dropping to the canvas. And Adesanya came out and said, yeah, I pointed to his son. I'm being petty. I remembered that. I held on that since 2017. And I have no problem with it. I'm not going to sit here and clutch my pearls. What Adesanya did to Pereira was far more detrimental than anything he could have done celebrating in a cage afterwards, dropping his body to the ground like a lifeless body. And I'm not going to sit here and clutch my pearls. And if you're crying about that, go watch another sport. You're watching men attempt to steal other men, attempt to steal their consciousness, attempt to give them brain damage that could affect them for the rest of their life. And if you're going to cry about him pointing into the crowd and then dropping to the canvas, I don't think this sport is for you. But let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.